Hi, this is Aaron Wilson. It's no secret the Texans want a new training facility, and they outlined that vision this week at their annual charity golf tournament. And it was interesting to hear from Cal McNair, Hannah McNair, and Texans president Mike Tomlin. So you look at where the Texans stand, and we'll start with NRG Stadium and kind of update you there, and then we'll shift to the training facility, which was a bigger topic of the conversation. But so this is where things go with NRG Stadium. As you guys know, there are 7 years remaining on a lease. It expires in 2032, and the Texans feel like they've outgrown it, certainly for training there. They don't feel like it's a world-class experience for their athletes, these football players, and they can't have all of their business people in the same office, so they need more space. They just feel like they've outgrown NRG Stadium. What this means for the football games, the actual games, not the practices that I cover and the fans attend at training camp, is this. The Texans, I believe, will not be going anywhere as far as NRG Stadium. The goal right now is renovate and work on a lease that gives the Texans, in my opinion, and what I'm expecting, what I'm hearing, at some point, if this works out, that they would have a bigger piece of the pie. They would also have to contribute to the renovations, which are the responsibility of Harris County. The Texans are a tenant currently, not the owners of NRG Stadium, which was constructed before 2002 and so has become a bit outdated. So when they first made NRG Stadium, which is a multi-use 72,220 capacity stadium, it was built at a cost of $352 million. Obviously, stadiums now are a lot more expensive with the price of concrete and all the modern wrinkles that you see at most stadiums. So we've talked about this before, kind of where the Texans stand. They want to improve the stadium. They haven't made any threats. This isn't an Oilers situation. I know for some fans that grew up with Oilers, that scares them. Any talk about stadium things or dissatisfaction, they think, oh, they're leaving. They're not going anywhere. I'll repeat, they're not going anywhere. They will play at NRG Stadium, I believe, for years and years and years to come. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be anywhere else in the greater Houston area when it comes to the stadium. When it comes to the training facility, it is a very realistic scenario that they will leave NRG Stadium. Not this year, but at some point that they will break ground with partners. And what their vision for that is, it's interesting. It has a lot to do with a situation that Mike Tomlin was intimately familiar with, which is how the Cowboys do things at the Star in Frisco, where they train in Frisco and then play their games at Jerry World at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And that's worked out pretty well for them with Frisco, where it's tied to a bunch of restaurants, retail, and it's a moneymaker. I don't, in my opinion, believe, even though they have the acreage, they could do this at NRG Park. They could do it across the street where the teal lot is located, where they have their practices. They could do it over there by the bubble. There's plenty of land. I think that it's more attractive for them to move somewhere else in the city or even more likely the suburbs. So could that be Pearland? Could that be Sugarland? I don't know if they go as far as Katy or the Woodlands, but I think that the Texans at some point, they're going to reach a deal with partners to have an entertainment district. And so there would be restaurants, there'd probably be movie theaters, there'd be shopping. I would imagine there'd be a team store. All those things would be located and centered around where the Texans training facility will be the anchor. I don't think it'd be like Jerry Jones where you get tours all the time when the players are there. And it's this navel-gazing kind of situation that Dalton Schultz hated and many other players have complained about over the years, where Jerry makes money with tours and they see players limping around if they're injured or on crutches and things like that. I don't think that's the scenario. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think Cal McNair would do that. So, we're going to include and link some videos to, what Cal and Hannah had to say about the stadium, and it is interesting. So, in Cal, he started off talking about the partners, really good partners with the rodeo and the county, but he called it a complicated mixture. On practice facility, working on that almost every day. He thinks that they would see that through sooner rather than later, in his words. Feels like they're in a good spot. They'll keep working at what he called a complex problem. So he calls it a problem. And the lease, they're working on that. And it seems like, there's some optimism that talks are going well, that there's progress have no idea when they would reach any kind of deal. It's not like we're getting like just a play-by-play of a business negotiation with the rodeo and Harris County and the city and all these things. So there's lots of partners, a lot of people involved, a lot of wrinkles, a lot of moving parts. And so, as Cal said, they're okay where they are, but okay is not what they're looking for. They're looking for something great. Would he move out? Yeah, he said they would move out, do a brand new one somewhere in the greater Houston area. They want to make sure the players are taken care of in a first-class manner, he said. Pluses and minuses, you got to start with a new clean slate, new drawing board, that would be good. But obviously, he feels like they've outgrown that. NRG Stadium, business side, football side, wants proper sizing, proper workflow, all those things. So it's interesting to hear from Cal on that, and to hear from Mike Toman on the training facility. He feels like the Texans would add a lot of value. Obviously, they're kind of advertising this for business partners, but they've been talking to people, and they have some pretty good options, they feel like, for corporate partners to engage with them. Retail, local retail, national retail. He thinks they can make money doing this. And obviously, the Texans are a business, and they like the idea of making money. Who doesn't? So it's also the trend around the NFL. Very few teams are now playing their games and training in the same site. So here's where the Texans stand with that. The Texans, the New England Patriots, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Carolina Panthers all play their games at their stadiums and practice and train and have business offices at the stadium. But there's sometimes where, I'm covering things and I can't stay there and work because there's a concert or there's a rodeo or there's lots of schedule conflicts, lots of overlaps. And so the Texans, they'd like to avoid that, not for the media as much, but obviously, could we have a nicer media workroom? Sure, that was brought up even. I don't think Hannah McNair was joking about that, even though she smiled and laughed a little bit when she was talking about that and brought that up. Hey, wouldn't you guys like to have a better place, media room? That's great. I live in River Oaks. I like my short commute. I'm fine with that, but, it's not up to me. It's not about me. It's about what the Texans want to do for their players, and this is their right to move that. But, as Hannah said, there's very few stadiums that are shared with the county, the rodeo, so they don't have the time they feel like they need to do everything they want to do in the building. Some people have to work off-site, so they don't like that. And Cal, of course, brought up in terms of NRG Stadium, the state of it. The county's done the studies, and he says, we're renters like you rent a house or an apartment. What's happened over time is fallen behind on the maintenance. The Texans have contributed, even though they didn't have to the maintenance and upkeep of NRG Stadium, and which is getting new video boards. So there are some improvements that are going to happen. So they have active talks. They're doing all these things, and we'll see where it lands. But they're having a lot of conversations. But they want to have a world-class facility, world-class experience for the fans, gives the team an advantage, all those good things. And, I think they're well-intended on this. And so Mike Toman, he has a background with the Cavaliers, the Bobcats, the Phoenix Suns, ticketing, partnership, sales strategies. And he's in charge of, global business development, all these things, work with legends, and they're vertical and quadrupled in size while he was there. So he's got 2 decades of experience, and he's worked with SoFi Stadium. He's worked with international soccer stadiums. He's done all these things. So he's got the background. That's why he got the job. That's why he's the new team president, and the Texans are entrusting him to guide them through this training facility process and also excuse me, with the stadium, trying to get that going in a better direction. But I think the time is right for them to strike deals, for them to do this stuff. And I know this is not necessarily football related, but it doesn't hurt when you have a fancy building to have that to show free agents, to host other events. And at some point, when they had the national championship a couple years ago, really I didn't feel like NRG Stadium was up to snuff. There were some complaints about it. There have been a lot of fans talk about, even though they like the concessions and some, the atmosphere and the vibe of NRG, they feel like it's tough to get in and out of. They have some complaints about traffic and the lights and the flow of all those things. So these are all things that are important. But one thing I would tell you just from working in that neighborhood is there's just not a lot of places to go hang out, go to lunch. There's the Chipotle, there's a Papacito's is probably the nicest restaurant in the area. It's just a lot of like sort of mom and pop type shops, and they're great. They're places that I'll have lunch when I get a chance to get out of the stadium. Most of the time, I'm just kind of set up and I'm hunkered down. I'm working. Texans, occasionally have some food for us, some great stuff. We appreciate that when the PR department brings us some food. But we're there to work, and I would say, the neighborhood. It's not exactly the fanciest neighborhood. It's not Rice Village. It's not River Oaks. It's a little bit different, and it's off of Merworth and Kirby, and it just, even though it's a good area, there's, definitely a, good neighborhood vibe. It's not like there's a lot there to do. And what keeps you there? What keeps you spending money? Now, just spitballing here, and I don't think this will happen, but I don't think they're going to legalize gambling, so they're not going to be fortunate like some stadiums. Like the Ravens have a Horseshoe Casino right down the block from their stadium. So there's a Gordon Ramsay steakhouse there. There's a lot of things to do. The Browns are not far from a Horseshoe Casino. There's a lot of opportunities if you do have casinos. But that's not going to happen. I don't see under Governor Abbott's tenure them legalizing gambling in Texas. So with that not happening, you're not really going to have a destination next to the stadium. Could you build an entertainment complex? Could you make it fancy? I guess you could, and you could. If you build it, they will come, like Field of Dreams, channeling that. But yeah, right now I just don't see that happening. But I do think what will happen is the Texans at some point in the next few years, they'll announce plans to break ground, and there'll be a site, and we'll know where they're going. And eventually they'll leave NRG Stadium for practice and for business operations. But I think it is years down the road. And as far as the lease, we're talking about 7 years left in the lease. Texans obviously want to do something sooner rather than later, but all has to be worked through. And that's really the large form takeaway on the state of the Texans, NRG Stadium, and the training facility. And they've outlined their vision. I think they communicated that very clearly, how they see things, what they want. And I did ask D'Amico Ryans, well, what does he think? And it was kind of interesting to hear, his comment. He says, give me some grass, put the ball down, we'll practice wherever they want us to practice. He'll leave it all up to the McNairs, how they handle that situation. Just wants to play football. That's what you'd expect to hear from a ball coach like D'Amico. And I think this will just continue to be something they work through. It's going to be very interesting to watch, but this is more in the sports business category, like the other one we talked about. We'll get back to talking some football and some observations from the mini camp. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll get these videos posted for you guys. Look forward to talking to you soon. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Talk soon.
Overall, all of our teammates in the organization, I think as Hannah mentioned, we're not even all in the same space at this point. So those are all opportunities that we have a chance to look at and make sure we're in the optimal position in the future.
Like when you look at this, the idea of this facility, Cal's mentioning development around it, economic opportunities. What kind of economic impact could that have on the Texans in terms of your annual revenues if you're able to have a facility develop around it?
For the stadium?
For the training facility.
For the training facility? I think it's a pretty unique situation these days. The value that the Texans can bring to a community, to the dirt, so to speak. We really see that there's a great way that we can impact the community in a great way to make sure that it's a destination, it's an asset for the community, for the folks who are there. And with that comes revenue opportunities. I think we're seeing that there's other organizations who have looked at it similarly, who, when you start seeing how important or how popular entertainment districts have become, they're great opportunities for corporate partners to engage. They're great opportunities for other retail, local retail, national retail, etc. So, there could be a meaningful revenue opportunity depending on how you situate it.
How much involvement will the players have, or input will they have once you all start putting this training facility together?
We're a team, and at the end of the day, one of the main focuses is to make sure we have an optimal place for the team to get better. And so certainly through Cal's leadership, Hannah's leadership, we're all under one organization, and making sure that it fits and works for them. That's a priority.
Mike, as you learn more about the region in terms of real estate, is there enough inventory with enough space for you guys for what you hope your vision is?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the great things. I think if you look at certainly NRG Park, we're significant acreage there. At the same point, we've been fortunate enough to have been invited into a number of different conversations and opportunities, all with the requisite amount of acreage that you'd want to focus in on a world-class training facility and/or district.
Would building in the neighborhood be an option?
I'm sorry?
Would building in the vicinity of NRG in the neighborhood, would that be an option for you?
It is an option that we're looking at. I mean, I think as Cal talks a lot about, it's like we're good. We're good where we are. So we're coming from that position and looking at from that, but we're also exploring other opportunities.
Do you sense any dissatisfaction from ownership with the current state of NRG Stadium, and how do you think you could improve that?
One of the reasons that certainly I feel fortunate to be here is that the McNairs have great aspirations for the team and for the city. And so a lot that we talk about is a world-class experience for our fans. And that comes down to everything that supports that. And so you think about the stadium, you think about the team, you think about the training facility. And at this stage, I think, working through with our partners, we're all striving for that. We know we have areas where we're not world-class at this stage. And so that's a focus, that's a drive.
Mike, it's been a few months since you've been here. Can you talk about how the conversation's gone with potential partners, leadership, and what's the reception? What's that been? You don't have to give me details, but what has that been?
In the business community?
Business community, political leadership, I know it have to be a partnership beyond just Texas.
Yeah, no, great question. It's been a focus. Has been making my way through and having an opportunity to meet everyone. I think, as Cal mentioned, it's a complex situation, but it's one that you have a lot of confidence in because we have some great leaders here in Houston. And so I would say it's been very warm and embracing, and it's one that certainly, when you look at everything that we have, the campus that we have, and certainly the McNairs vision, it's one that you get pretty excited about. You're pretty optimistic. With all the right smart people looking at one opportunity, you usually get a better answer.
With all the talk of the stadium and the practice facility, speaking of that vision, how much of your personal vision do you think has to do with why you're standing here right now in the podium?
It's the McNairs vision. I think I'm standing in front of you because of my personal experience. And so I've been, lucky enough over the last 25 years to work on some of the most significant stadium developments, training facilities, etc. in the space. So my experience, I would say, is the main thing. It's certainly not my height, but my experience is certainly what brings me here today.
Mike, you mentioned the district. Can you expand on that a little bit and how you might envision that looking?
I think just districts in general are interesting to us because of the impact they have on the community. And so to do a district the right way can be a real benefit for generations to come for the community around. And that's what interests us is can you make an opportunity that allows the team to perform at the highest level, allows us to deliver world-class experience, puts Houston in the right leg, and takes advantage of all the great things that Houston has to bring 365 days a year. And so when you think about districts in general, that allows you to accomplish those things.
Annual fundraiser, golf tournament. Looks like a beautiful day, and we're excited to be here. Got a great crowd, and should be a fun time. Do y'all have any questions for us?
Now, this event has grown, and the impact. How important is this event to what you guys are trying to accomplish, foundation-wise, et cetera?
Yeah, Hannah's really involved in the foundation, so she'll jump in here, I hope. But it is our 22nd. This is our biggest fundraiser for us, and this is a record day for us. Over $550,000 raised. Should be a really good day for all the golfers, and the money goes to the foundation, and the foundation focuses on the kids, the girls' flag, and just does a lot of good things over the years. And so, yeah, it's a good for all of us.
For Cal and Hannah, you watched the draft and you saw Nick trading and moving around. What did you think of how it turned out overall, both of you guys?
I think we came away with a really good draft class. We'll find out. They come in this weekend for the rookie camp, and we're excited to see them on grass and not on film. So it's an exciting time for all of us, and to welcome this 9-person draft class will be a lot of fun.
Hey, Hannah, can you just talk about some of the work at the foundation, especially the flag? You know, that recently you guys had a whole line of apparel. Talk about how this helps that effort.
So the golf tournament does go back to the Houston Texans Foundation, which helps us with girls flag football. We are growing very fast, and there's a lot of interest, especially here in Texas. We'll be in El Paso later this month to watch the girls flag championship there. We're all around the city. We are just doing it every single day, and my daughter is still playing right now, so I do it on the weekends, and our passion grows as our daughter's passion grows, and it's an exciting time to be a part of flag football.
We were pretty stoked to have Ashley out there. That's one of those things.
Oh yes, that was amazing. And the jacket she was wearing was really fun. A friend of mine actually did that, and that was really special.
Cal, at the owners meetings, you talked about the offensive line a little bit, about the best 5. What do you think about the competition they're creating by adding so many linemen this offseason?
Excited to watch them coach them up and call the plays that allow them to play their best. And looks like a really strong competition. And our second pick is a huge player. I'm excited to see him 6'6" and 330. So he's a big man, and he'll be going there, and we'll see what he can do with the other guys. So excited for that competition.
Kyle, is this competitiveness or camaraderie when you're out here?
It's camaraderie until we start playing.
What do you guys like about working with Mike Tillman this far, and what would you say your guys' big objective between now and say the rest of the regular season?
All positive. He's also standing right there. All good things. Mike's been wonderful. A great addition into the Houston Texans. He just hit the ground running, and it's been a wonderful experience so far.
We talked about just I don't want to say growth, but I guess the evolution of this team in terms of how it's perceived in the community over the past maybe 3 years. Think about where you were 3 years ago and now, just that growth.
Well, we're trying to get better every day, and have that growth every day, and trying to get better every year, both on the field and off the field. And it's always a challenge, and it's always a lot of hard work. But we're here to do the hard work and stick with it, and make the city proud, both on and off the field.
Cal, in terms of facilities, infrastructure, whatever word you want to use, where are your priorities right now? Maybe in the immediate future, long-term future, whether that's training facility, stadium. Where are you with all that?
We're working with some really good partners with the rodeo and also the county, and it's a complicated kind of a mixture, but with the practice facility, we're working on that almost every day, and the lease, overall lease, we're working on that, and where we wind up with practice facility, I'm not really quite sure yet. We have a lot of great options, and we'll sort of sort through that sooner rather than later. But we're in a good spot, and we'll keep working out a complex problem.
How far are you willing to go distance-wise from where you are now to find something that works for you?
Well, that's a great question.
What's great is we're okay where we are.
Okay.
And so that's our starting point. And then would we move out? Yeah, we would move out and do a brand new one somewhere. But Greater Houston area, I'd say.
How do y'all want that to potentially look, and what do you all hope it does for what you all are trying to grow with the Texans?
The practice facility?
Yeah, practice facility headquarters.
So yeah, very few teams are actually in the facility, the stadium, like we are, and so it's more the norm to move out. And when you do that, there's been some teams that have done it recently, where they have development around there, and so those are all things we're looking at. The first thing is to make sure that players are taken care of in a first-class manner, so they can go out and win games for our fans.
There's also very few stadiums that are used the way that we use our stadium and share it with the county and the rodeo. So there's not really much time to do everything we need to do in that building. And we actually have some people working off-site, so not everyone is able to be in that building anymore.
To that point, in what ways can it help the organization for you to have your own facility?
have its own practice
Yeah,
facility.
what ways, separate from what you guys are doing now, what ways can it actually help the organization?
Well, there's pluses and minuses. So some of the pluses is you start with a new clean slate and a new drawing board. The one we're in, was drawn up in 2002, actually before that. And so we've sort of outgrown that both on the business side and on the football side. And so being able to get the proper sizing, the proper workflow, all those things in there will really help us.
I think that's yet to be measured, really.
You mentioned at the owners' meetings that when you guys left the playoff game, you guys felt that you were close. What have you guys seen over the offseason that made you guys feel like you were closer to you guys?
Well, our strategy going into the draft is like those families where everybody's name starts with a J. It's kind of what we did for the draft. So I feel like we're closer.
Yeah, what do you say to people? Yeah, what do you say to Houstonians who say, "Hey, the stadium looks fine to us"? How do you help them understand that the stadium, while it's fine, there needs to be something?
How's y'all's media room? Would y'all like an improvement?
It's not about us, though, right? No, but seriously, to help fans understand what is necessary.
So the county has done studies because it is a county's, and we are renters, like you rent a house or an apartment. And what has happened over time is it's fallen behind on its maintenance, and so that's what the studies that the county has done has shown.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.